Okay, good morning, student. This is environmental course for nursing second year. Today we are going to see housing and institutional sanitation. So please have attention, and at the end I will ask you question, and if you have question again, write me through my WhatsApp. Good. So let's continue with housing and institutionalization. Let's define some terms. What is housing? Housing or house is a physical structure where a person lives, or in a simple language, it is merely a shelter where somebody lives. So housing is building or structure where an individual or a family lives, develops or works healthfully. Housing is a physical structure that man uses for shelter, and the structure including all necessary services, facility, equipment, and the devices needed or desired for the physical, mental, and social well-being of family and individual. So this is what we call it, the special definition of WHO. Simply you can say residential building, immediate surrounding, neighborhood, and the community. Good. So do you think that all individual or all community have standardized house? No, there are some figures. So the global level, 25% of world population and 60% of population in developing countries lack basic housing. 23% of urban and 64% of rural population lack safe water. 40% of urban and 84% of rural population lack basic sanitation. 80% of health problems in developing countries is attributed to lack of safe water and basic sanitation. 15% of US population, which is a developed country, and one third of the entire developed countries population live in substandardized housing. Good. So physical structure, when we say one, building or shelter and its facilities. Second, solid waste management, latrine, water supply, bathing, kitchen. It is immediate microenvironments. Third, neighborhoods, road, water supply lines, market. These are its immediate microenvironment. Again, it should fulfill this one again, not only housing. The other, government office like Kabales, school, police station, health center should present there again. Transportation access for this again. The other, for promotion of physical, mental, and social well-being of inhabitants. Therefore, when you build the house or shelter or housing, when we say, these all should be considered. Basic housing principle. As WHO adopted healthy full housing criteria are as follows. 1. Fundamental physiological needs like educate living space, educate and clean air, educate ventilation, educate indoor lighting, maintenance of thermal comfort, protection against excessive noise. So this is a fundamental physiological need. Second, reducing psychological and social stress to a minimum, like microenvironment interaction, like educate living space, properly latrine and that ventilated, reinforcement of personal and family security, provision of recreational sites for children and elders, access to community amenities like market, transport, offices, provision of clean air, water, and noise free. These are reducing psychological and social stress. Third one, improving the housing environment. MA, microenvironment interaction. Access to security and emergency service like fire, rescue, emergency medical service. Access to social services, health services, school, cultural center, communication, water supply, waste disposal. These all are improving housing, environmental, microenvironment, what we call MA. Protecting population at special risk. Priorities, like priority should be given for what? High risk population groups like children, women, elders, sick and disabled individuals. Those who live in substandardized housing like urban slums, what we call, or squatters settlements. Displaced and mobile population should be considered again. Category of housing, priority should be, as we have said, high-risk population groups, children, women, elder, the sick and the disabled. Substandardized or substandard housing is the structure that is lacking most of the above criteria. Already what we major criteria that we have mentioned, if it miss one or two or three, we call it substandard housing. Good. Lighted housing is a building where housing conditions are starting to deteriorate. Slum area is standard house with unsanitary buildings, poverty, and social disorganization like crime, juvenile delinquency, prostitution, drug abuse, alcoholism, theft. Where is all? Slum area is also called as shanty towns. Slum, when we say SLUM, don't forget. So is also called shanty town or squatters settlements. Most often slum house lacks toilet facilities, educate and safe water supply, educate light and heat, educate space less than 4 meters square per sleeping area per person. Bathing facility, ventilation, no windows. Most of areas, no windows, like overcrowding, more than 1.5% per habitable room. Public health importance, increased infectious due to overcrowding. Yes, you know this one. When individuals, more than expected individuals are living in a small house, especially communicable disease increase, like as you have seen now currently, what is going on in the world is like coronavirus. In area where there is highly crowded, it is uh, affecting more individuals. It's one of special communicable diseases. That's why increased infections due to overcrowding and the lack of basic sanitation facilities. It can be respiratory, like corona, what we have said, different kind, like it can be TB. The others, like from GIT, skin and eye infections. Increased infestation with rats, bed bug, lice, flies, mosquitoes. Increased incident for like fire. Social problems like juvenile delinquencies, alcoholism, prostitution, narcotics, etc. Certain basic elements of housing standard. One, area and air volume requirements. So just you can see a derivation from your handouts, a derivation which say D is equal to E over R, where D is normally require fresh air per hour per capita. E is extended carbon dioxide per hour, 70 liters per hour. R is safety factor for respiration discomfort due to carbon dioxide. Normal atmosphere condition is 0.04% of carbon dioxide that can be tolerated up to 0.06% for breathing by volume. A safety factor is 0.02% of desired. By rearranging the numbers, D will be 85 meter cube per hour. If we assume a room has normally an exchange rate of air 3 times per hour, then the figure will be about 28.33 meter cube per hour. The room area then will be 10 meters square at an acceptable ceiling height of 2.723 meters. Generally, 9 to 10 meters square per person is acceptable. Space requirement 10 meters square per person. Area is the habitable rooms, living and sleeping area simply. Air volume requirement 28 meter cube per person needed. So sign of overcrowding when we say if greater than or equal to 1.5 person or any habitable room, greater than 2 person bedroom, or in single bedroom if two individuals sleep, for example, greater than 2 person bedroom or less than 3.75 meter square sleeping room, so we call it sign of overcrowding. So what are the criteria to say it is overcrowding? There are major settings, don't forget. If it is greater than or equal to 1.5% per any habitable room, one. Second, if it is greater than person per bedroom, in one bedroom, if it is greater than 2 person are sleeping. The other, if it is less than 3.75 meters square per sleeping room. These are what we call it overcrowding, sign of overcrowding. The other, indoor lighting standards. What's the indoor lighting standard? Light coefficient, window area for per floor area. Window area per floor area, it should be 10.15%. Orientation or window needing in natural lighting, south is the most common. Then southeast, southwest, east, and the west orientation may cause room overheating and the sunlight glare. North orientation can be selected next to south. So don't forget the direction, which one is the most suitable. The first one is south, the second one is north. The color of the interior, ceiling, 80 to 90% of reflectance should be needed. Wall, 60 to 70%. Floor, 50 to 30%. And furnishings, 30 to 50%. Reflectance is the proportion of light that is reflected from a given surface. The more the contrast between the object and its background, the better will be its visibility. Window area to floor area. This is very important, don't forget. When you are building the houses, what is the minimum amount of the window should needed? So minimum of the window should be from the total area, 10% should be windows, don't forget. This has been found on the basis of minimum intensity of illumination on the horizontal plane 1 meter above the floor. There should be proper lighting and emitting surface orientation. What about heighting, shading of the object? If there is one object, there is shading. So what should be? It should be 1 greater than or equal to 2 height, where 1 is the distance between the two objects, and h is the height of the wall being shaded by obstructing object. Habitable rooms need to get direct sunlight for some hours, about 3 hours, for the ultraviolet disinfection. The third one is thermal comfort. Basic equation you will see on your handout. M plus C plus R minus E is equal to 0. Core temperature at 37 degrees centigrade, temperature at 38.5 degrees is danger, serious at 40.5, hyperthermia, what we call, days at 42 degrees centigrade, individual cannot live. That is not temperature of the air, temperature of human being. So the equation like CH plus O2 is equal to carbon dioxide plus water plus work done plus M. M means heat from exothermic reaction. C, convention, heat loss due to air movement depend on the difference between the skin and air temperature levels. Normal skin has 35 degrees centigrade. Normal skin. E, evaporation. Heat loss by sweating depend on the difference in moisture amount between skin surface and the relative humidity in air. R, radiation. Heat transfer from high surface temperature to low temperature. So this is all about housing and institutional. The other is solid waste management. So this should be the last what we call this, the last subject, the last chapter that we are going to see here. So this is solid waste management is good. So how can you define solid waste? Solid wastes are useless, unwanted, or discarded materials that arise from main activities and are not free flowing. This is what we call it WHO definition. Useless, unwanted, and discarded materials that arise from main activities and are not free flowing. These are solid waste. What are types of municipal or non-hazardous solid waste? Non-hazardous solid waste. The first one is refuse. Refuse include all solid waste in practice. This category includes garbage, rubbish, ash, dead animals. All are refuses. What is garbage? Garbage means simply it is what? It is a waste resulting from growing, handling, preparation, cooking, and serving of food. So it attracts insects, rats, rapidly decomposes with production of unpleasant odor. The other is rubbish. This term include all non-putrescible refuse except ashes, except ash all. There are two categories of rubbish, compostable and non-compostable. Compostable, this material is primarily organic. It includes items such as paper, plastic, cardboard, wood, rubber, bedding. So they are organic. Non-compostable means inorganic materials. Inorganic materials and include like tin cans, metal, glass, ceramic, and other mineral refuses. Ashes, waste product from coal, from charcoal, wood when burned. These ashes. Dead animals include dead animals of cow, dog, cat, hen, horse, dog, whatever it is. Straight sweeping consists of materials worn from straight surfaces, dirt dropped or worn away from vehicles, cigarette butts, grease leaves, and sidewalks. Other wastes can be demolished materials, abandoned cars, construction wastes, demolition materials, abandoned automobiles are also considered as municipal wastes. Classification by source. How can you classify? One, residential, so residential wastes are there, agricultural are there, commercial and industrial are there, institutional sold are there, hospital sold are there. Number of. The residential means generated from living households, domestic. Generally contain non-hazardous household waste like kitchen waste, ketama or ashes, different kinds. The other is agricultural. Solid waste due to agriculture activity, food residues, animal dungs, crop residues. Such wastes are usually non-hazardous and negligible in rurals, most of the developing countries. Commercial waste generated from business establishments, food establishment, shop, generally non-hazardous. Paper, cardboard, wood, metal, plastic. These are some common commercial. Industrial wastes from various type of industrial process. The nature of waste depend on the type of industry, kind of raw material. There may be toxic and hazardous wastes that have adverse effect to the environment. Institutional solid waste generated from public and government institution like offices, religious institution, schools, university. It is generally not hazardous. Hospital solid waste, discarded unwanted solid wastes from hospital like it can be both hazardous and non-hazardous. Collection. This is the removal of refuse from collection points to final disposal site. Types of collection system in different town have different system. For example, if you take in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, there are different system like door-to-door collection are there. Door-to-door collection is there. Block system, a collection system which a refuse truck gets into a compound or premises for collection of refuse container. This is equivalent to backyard or door collection system. Container system are there again, a collection system involving large container, which is it can be about some of them are small 4 meter cubes, other are 6 meter cubes, other are 8 meter cube, located at public sites. Collection means different collection means are there, like one is vehicular, lift truck, side loading truck, or compacting truck. Different depend on accessibility, refuse density, road condition, and construction density. Animal carts, usually with the aid of animal from generation points to transfer stations or bigger containers. Manual labor from small container to big ones, like time of collection mostly at the night in business and the traffic areas, day in residential sites, at least twice a week for mixed type of domestic waste. Factor affecting this may be location of container, collection frequency, truck availability, distance from the landfill, road traffic, and road physical condition, number of loaders, maintenance efficiency, population density, type of refuse truck. This all. may affect the collection. Transportation, refuse truck, trailers with the transfer station. Refuse truck type, it can be side loader. Compacting, which is push and rotating type, also called packer and the back loader. Container lift. Volume varies. The most common are 8, 10, 12, 15 meter cube. Disposal, sanitary landfill. Structured disposal place, controlled sanitary landfill. Operation segment, refuse, dumping, spreading, compacting, and covering with soil. 15 centimeter for every day's refuse and 50 to 60 centimeter thickness for the completed landfill. Machinery is needed, maybe bulldozers, compacting trucks, ex- excavation truck, and dump trucks. Advantage, low cost, easy to operate, availability of soil condition, humus, possible land reclamation. Disadvantage, maybe land requirement, maybe it will take more land, that's a land requirement. Surface and underground water pollution, maybe if there is underground water, this can easily damage or contaminate the underground water. The other, scavenging, vector breeding, if not well managed. Vector may be breed over it because it maybe sometimes have different smelling. Care with the landfill, proper siting, fire, odor, underground pollution, leachate, and gas production control, closure, and post closure can it should be developed. Post closure means after you fill, you should what cover it by soil. That's what we call post closure. After that, there is no smelling at all, so it cannot be used for vector breeding. The other, incineration, that is commercial and domestic incineration. Burning incineration, when we say, you can simply burn this. The other is properly sited, designed and operated sanitary landfill will meet. When we select this landfill, there are a criteria. What are these criteria? One, vector breeding and sustenance will be prevented. Air pollution by dust, smoke, and odor will be controlled. Pollution of surface and the groundwater will be precluded. All sorts of nuisance will be minimized. Nuisance, maybe they have different bad smelling. It should be minimized. Fire hazard shall be avoided. Controlled open dumping, modified for form of sanitary landfill. Controlled open dumping is there sometimes openly. So this modified forms. The upper open dumping, uncontrolled and deregulated. Open dumping a little bit difficult. The other is land forming or composting, if the solid waste has a larger proportion of biodegradable. Incineration means already we have said burnings. The other, commercial incineration, has changing apparatus, furnace, stacker, air cleaning device, internal operating temperature. So using the temperature, you are going to what? Burn it. Advantage, complete destruction are there, volume reduction is there. Disadvantage, high capital and operation costs. Need for electricity may generate air pollution. Domestic on-site type of installation is a common at home or at household and institutional level. Its structure includes stack, so like dosing chamber, great for composition and discharging chamber. Only dry solid are recommended for incineration. Only dry. The residues and ashes is disposed by burial. You are going to bury it, and then you are going to cover it by soil. Advantage, low cost and technical simplicity. Disadvantage, no complete composition result in air pollution. With incomplete composition product like fly ash, like soot, black smoke, no significant volume reduction is achieved. Material recovery has economical value, environmental friendly. Energy recovery, methane gas from landfill tapping and compost plant, heat energy from incineration used for electricity, material reclamation, salvaging, food remains, paper, cans, bottle, clothes, metal, glasses. Composting, a process of changing organic solid waste into manure or into compost. But hazard of refuse management, vector breeding like rat, fly, mosquito, water pollution due to leachates, air pollution due to open incineration, fire hazards, scavenging like cat, dog, man, flooding by leachate, aesthetic like odor, no attractive, solid waste management workers, healthy risks. These are some of the hazards of refuse management. Don't forget, maybe I will ask you at least write down 5 hazards of refuse management, like vector breeding, water pollution, air pollution, fire hazard, flooding, different kinds. Medical solid waste or hospital waste. So classification, we can classify this. WHO classification are there. These are general non-hazardous wastes and the hazardous waste. General non-hazardous, when we say non-hazardous, when we say waste mainly from kitchen, sharp, whether infected or not, mainly used sharp, infected waste not containing sharp, dressing, discarded lines, syringes, chemical and pharmaceutical wastes, other than cytotoxic drugs, other hazardous medical waste, cytotoxic drug, radioactive wastes. Good. Healthy hazards like AIDS, HIV, HPV, hepatitis B virus, diarrheal diseases, lab workers, cleaners. These are what we call healthy hazards. Source medical waste. These wastes are usually produced in rooms, patient room, treatment room, nursing stations include solid dressing, catheters, and masks. Surgical, pathologic wastes, laboratory wastes from laboratory diagnostic areas, researchable laboratory areas, infectious solid wastes, proportion of medical waste that is infectious, dressing lab, pathologic wastes, contaminated blood, discarded equipment, etc. Domestic or general wastes, these are offices, kitchen waste, non-hazardous. Radioactive wastes are there again. Radiating residues produced as a result of radiotherapy and diagnostic. Classification by types of risk, general waste, non-infectious waste, and the medical infectious waste are there. There are 3 classifications. So general waste, when we say like office, kitchen, conference, and the lecture rooms, these are low risk areas. Non-infectious ward like OPD, selectively consultation room, these are what we call it medium risk. Medical infectious ward like surgical ward, maternity ward, OR, operation room, operation theater, what we call operation room, laboratories, pathology sections, these are high risk. So based on the risk, we are going to classify into 3: low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Medical waste management, on-site storage like needle and the sharp be kept in puncture-proof container immediately after use. Decontamination of hazardous waste like sharp cultures, discarded lines, etc. Use of chemicals like chlorine solution. Hazardous waste in red plastic bag, wrapped and stored in red bin until collection. Non-hazardous waste in black bin. Don't forget this. There is a bin which is prepared for this. If it is hazardous, put it in red. If it is non-hazardous waste, it should be in black bin. Self-care during waste handling. Self-care. The first one is provision of personal protective devices, head cover, thick rubber gloves, plastic aprons, rubber boots covering at least half of the leg. Collection of red and black beans is done manually with the use of cart to the main storage container or transfer station. The 2 types of waste need to be collected separately in every instance. Transportation and disposal, it can be landfill, it can be incineration, already we have said it can be commercial type of incineration, domestic type of incineration, burial, like placenta, blood, excretion, secretion, these are what could be buried. Drainage, only after decontaminated. The other is principles of pollution and its control. What are the principles of pollution and its control? Pollution means is a presence of substance in a medium with the result of change of its natural state, potentially to cause an adverse effect to the environment. An interaction exists between pollutant and the media. Pollutant can be physical, it can be chemical, it can be biological pollutant. Source of pollution, natural, it can be industrial, domestic, transport. Intentional and unintentional source of pollution are there again. What is being polluted? It is ecosystem, what we call it. It can be water may be polluted, air, soil. Adverse effect of pollutant or hazard, response to pollutants, teratogenicity, carcinogenicity, pathological, fire hazard, infectious, allergy development maybe. Toxic substance definition. Toxicity is the inherent capacity of substance or chemical to cause an adverse health effect. Toxic and the dose response relationship. If it is high dose, maybe toxicity increase. If it is low dose, toxicity may be decrease. Good. Toxicity criteria. Experimental animals may be based on dose, concentration, in working and ambient environment, concentration in water, in air, in food. Exposure. Exposure means it is a site of condition like routes, dose, concentration, vehicle of media, length of time, the agent, and the host factors. An individual is in contact with a given dose of substance or situation. This is what we call exposure. Exposure can be acute, subacute, or chronic. Factor of exposure and toxicity, agent maybe. The inherent toxicity, duration of exposure, and it is dose. The environment, source of exposure again. So route of exposure, it can be inhalation, ingestion, and dermal through the skin. That's what we call. Host factor, yes, individual susceptibility. These are some of the factors. Fate of the pollutant after they enter the body, they distribute maybe in the body. So body metabolism may be disturbed, maybe excreted through the urine, maybe stored, and maybe it causes adverse effects. Principle of environmental pollution control are there. What is this? First one is prevention and control as a source and process. It should be as approach and a basic intervention, like use of time, radiation restriction, use of physical distance, or social distancing, what we call use of physical distancing, isolation, noise and radiation, from noise and from radiation, air pollution, sanitary zoning, master plan like site selection, and the green area development, which is very important. Green area development is very important. Therefore, what are the prevention and control as a source and the process? Approach the basic intervention, use of the time, use of physical distancing, use of physical barriers, sanitary zoning, green area developments. The second one is waste treatment, destruction, use of thermal and chemical treatment, composting and biodegradation, removable, maybe sedimentation, screening, filtration, inhibition, food preservation, water chlorination, etc. Proper waste disposal sites provision, sanitary landfill are there, hazardous waste disposal site control, liquid waste treatment facility provision and control. The fourth one is regulating policy enforcement, the polluter responsibility, emission standards, how it release emission when we say, like what we have said when we discuss about quality of the water from industry, when you leave the water into water body or into the lands, what are emission criteria? Already we have seen it. So emission standards, standard of for pollutant and the level in environment again, training and capacity are there. So don't forget, principle of environmental pollution and the control. What are these? One, prevention and the control as a source and the process. One. Second one, waste treatment. Third one, proper waste disposal site provision. The last one or the fourth, regulating policies enforcement. The last but not the least is air pollution and its control. What's function of air? Maintains life through the constant supply of oxygen and carbon dioxide, involves in body temperature regulation, helps in functioning of smelling and hearing, serve as coolant in industries and households. Air composition, physical composition, mixture of gases, water vapor, solid and the liquid particles. Chemical components percent by volume: nitrogen 78%, oxygen 20.95, carbon dioxide and traces 0.04. So this is the components of air. Don't forget. Which one contain more? It is nitrogen, which is about 78%. Definition of air pollution: it means the presence in the atmosphere of one or more air contaminants or composition there if in such quantities and of such duration that they may be harmful to human, plant, or animal life and the property, or that may interfere with comfortable enjoyment of life or property or the conduct of businesses or other human activities. This is a definition from Barnum, 1980. Keywords here are what? Air contaminant. What are air contaminant? What is concentration? Exposure duration, adverse effects, maybe life damage, comfort, material damage. So these are some of the keywords here. A controversy is there really pure air that contains its components, mainly nitrogen, oxygen, and 75% of carbon dioxide in the trace of gases? Answer this question. Classification of air pollution: it can be aerosol and the gases, dust, smoke, vapor. The other public health important air pollutants, particulate matter. It can be like the other like sulfuric acid is there, sulfuric oxide are there, the nitrogen, ozone formed as a ground in photochemical reaction with the presence of sunlight, carbon monoxide, like incomplete fuel composition.